12-year-old Yuri stood alone in a dim alleyway of St. Petersburg, the bitter wind biting at his thin clothes. Snowflakes danced under the streetlight as people passed by, heads down, hurrying to escape the cold. But Yuri remained, clutching a worn guitar held together with tape, its strings frayed yet still able to carry a melody. His torn jacket offered little warmth, but his voice, trembling, soulful, filled the night with a haunting song. It wasn't just music, it was a plea, a prayer, a message wrapped in every note. Yuri wasn't singing for fame or applause. He sang for his mother, who lay on a mattress in their tiny one-room apartment, too weak to get out of bed. Medicine cost more than they had, and food was often just a piece of bread split between them. Every day after school, if he made it there, Yuri came to this same corner, hoping his voice could bring in just enough to keep them going. His song tonight was Hotel Moscow, a local ballad that told the story of broken promises and long-lost warmth, a song older Russians knew well, but few had ever heard sung with such heartbreaking sincerity. As he played, the world seemed to blur. Yuri closed his eyes, his cheeks flushed from the cold. He imagined his mother smiling, warm and well again. Across the street, unnoticed by him, a man in a thick coat had stopped. He didn't toss a coin. He didn't speak. He simply pulled out his phone and began to film. There was something about the boy's voice, raw, angelic, and filled with desperation, that made the man freeze in place. The street noise faded. Even the cold seemed to still for a moment. The song ended, Yuri looked up, and their eyes met briefly. The man nodded, silently, and walked away. Yuri didn't know who he was. Just another stranger. But that stranger had just captured something that would soon echo far beyond that alley. He had recorded not just a boy, but a moment of truth, one that the world was about to hear. And for Yuri, though he didn't know it yet, this cold night would be the start of something much warmer. Yuri pushed open the creaky wooden door of their tiny apartment, a plastic bag of warm soup and bread clutched in his frozen fingers. The room was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, and the air smelled faintly of medicine and old fabric. His mother lay curled beneath a heavy blanket on their shared cot, coughing gently, her thin frame barely visible beneath the layers. "I got you soup, Mama," Yuri whispered, kneeling beside her. She gave him a tired smile, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead with shaking fingers. "My brave boy," she murmured. As she sipped slowly, Yuri turned on the small, dusty television in the corner, a distraction, maybe, from the weight of another long day. Static crackled before the evening news filled the screen. But then, the channel suddenly shifted. A familiar tune rang out. It was his voice. His guitar. He froze. There he was, standing in the alley, coat flapping in the wind, singing Hotel Moscow with eyes closed and heart wide open. The same performance, but now framed by headlines, Voice of the Streets, Homeless Russian Boy Moves the Internet to Tears. The clip had already racked up thousands of views. Comments poured in on the screen. "This is the soul of Russia. That boy is singing more than just music, he's singing pain." And then, one comment appeared in bold, highlighted by the broadcaster. "Get this boy on Russia's Got Soul. Someone find him, fast." Yuri's breath caught in his throat. His mother gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. The room felt suddenly brighter, the air charged with something unfamiliar, hope. A knock came at the door. Startled, Yuri rushed to open it. A production assistant stood there, wrapped in a thick jacket and holding a letter. "Are you Yuri?" he asked gently. Yuri nodded, silent. The man handed him the envelope. "You've been invited to audition for Russia's Got Soul. Your video, it touched hearts everywhere." Yuri's hands trembled as he held the letter close. His mother looked at him, tears in her tired eyes. "Maybe, this is your chance," she whispered. And for the first time in a long while, Yuri allowed himself to believe, maybe it was. The stage lights blazed like 1,000 suns, casting long shadows behind Yuri as he stepped forward. The grand auditorium was packed, every seat filled with eager faces, yet he felt completely alone. His boots, scuffed and damp from the snow, made a soft squeak against the polished floor. In his small hands, he clutched the same worn guitar, the one that had once echoed through a frozen alleyway. The judges sat high above him, their expressions unreadable. One of them, a middle-aged man with slicked-back hair and a tight jaw, leaned toward the woman beside him and whispered, not too softly, "Another viral pity case?" She didn't reply, but her gaze lingered on the boy a moment longer. Yuri cleared his throat. The microphone loomed above him like a monument. He looked out at the crowd and spotted a sea of eyes, phones raised, waiting. Expecting. Judging. He took a breath, deep and shaky, then began to play. The first note of Hotel Moscow rang out, raw and delicate. His voice followed, low, trembling, but achingly beautiful. Each lyric painted a picture of shattered dreams, of families torn apart by hardship, of warmth lost in the endless Russian winter. The words didn't just echo in the hall, they pierced it. Within seconds, the audience stilled. Phones slowly lowered. A mother in the front row squeezed her daughter's hand. A young man wiped his cheek without realizing it. On stage, Yuri sang like no one was watching, like the music was all he had left. By the final verse, you could hear a pin drop. One of the judges tried to speak, but their voice cracked under the weight of the moment. Tears streamed silently down her face. And then, a single, thunderous sound broke the silence. Bang! The head judge stood up, his face red with emotion, and slammed the golden buzzer with his fist. Gold confetti burst from the ceiling. The crowd erupted into cheers, many of them still crying. Yuri stood frozen, mouth slightly open, his guitar hanging limp at his side. He hadn't come for fame. He had come to be heard, and now, the world was finally listening. Backstage buzzed with chaos, lights flickered, camera crews scrambled, and producers shouted over headsets, but in the center of it all, Yuri stood motionless, still clutching his guitar like a lifeline. Gold confetti clung to his hair and shoulders. A stagehand rushed forward and wrapped him in a tight hug, followed by another. They weren't just congratulating him, they were thanking him. Moments later, one of the judges, the one who had cried openly, pushed past the curtains and found him. She knelt to his level, her mascara smudged but her eyes kind. "I was that poor child once," she whispered, emotion thick in her voice. "Singing to survive. You reminded me where I came from." She touched her chest. "Thank you, Yuri. Truly." He didn't know what to say. He just smiled, shyly, gratefully. Within hours, the world responded. The show announced they would fund his mother's full medical treatment. News stations ran headlines. Fans around the globe, from New York to Tokyo, donated, sending messages like, "For the boy who made us feel again." Then came the phone call. A major music label offered Yuri a scholarship, voice training, even a chance to record his first album. The room buzzed with excitement. People celebrated. But Yuri looked down, fiddling with the frayed hem of his jacket. When the producer asked him how he felt, what he wanted to do now, he didn't mention fame. He didn't ask for a mansion, or a new guitar, or to go viral again. He simply looked up, eyes wide with innocence, and asked, "Can I buy Mama a warm bed first?" Silence fell over the room again, not heavy like before, but soft, reverent. The kind of silence that only comes when a single sentence touches every soul in the room. It was then they realized, Yuri's greatest gift wasn't his voice. It was his heart. Sunlight streamed through the white curtains, casting a golden glow over the freshly painted walls. The once cramped apartment had been transformed into a warm, peaceful space. A small potted plant sat on the windowsill. The bed, no longer a thin mattress on the floor, was soft, new, and covered in clean blankets. And in it, propped up by pillows, Yuri's mother sat upright, smiling through tears. It was the first time she had smiled like that in years. Yuri sat beside her, cross-legged, his guitar resting gently in his lap. There was no stage, no cameras, no roaring applause. Just the quiet hum of the morning and the soft, sincere voice of a boy singing, not to impress, not to perform, but to thank. He sang for her. For the woman who once skipped meals so he could eat. For the arms that wrapped him warm in the coldest nights. For the whispers of encouragement when hope seemed farthest away. His voice filled the room, still raw and beautiful, but now free of desperation. It was full of gratitude, of peace. On the wall above them hung a framed photo, him on the stage, surrounded by golden confetti. But it wasn't about the fame. It was a reminder. Of where he came from. Of why he sang. His mother reached for his hand, her touch light but steady. "You found your song, Yuri," she whispered. He smiled. "You gave it to me." The room fell into a comfortable silence, wrapped in warmth, the kind that doesn't come from heaters or blankets, but from being loved, truly and unconditionally. Narration, final line. Sometimes, a single voice can melt the coldest hearts, and rewrite a destiny.